The tea had gone cold. I hadn't noticed. It sat on the window ledge, untouched. Chamomile, as always. The scent was faint now, more memory than presence. That morning, I had opened my bank app, something I did every week. Just to check. A habit of mine, like watering the plants or dusting the bookshelf. But the login failed. Twice. So I called the branch. The voice on the line was polite, professional. Mrs. Hayes, I'm afraid your account has been reassigned to the power of attorney listed. A Ms. Angela Wilcox. That's your daughter, yes? I remember sitting very still. Like a statue, someone forgot to put away. I didn't authorize that, I said, after a long silence. You did, he replied, gently. We have a signed form from 2 months ago. The room didn't spin. It didn't need to. Everything inside me had already tilted. I hung up without saying goodbye. Then I walked to the kitchen. Angela was there folding laundry, humming to herself. She looked up and smiled when she saw me. I spoke to the bank, I said. Her smile didn't fade. She reached over and touched my arm. Mom, you told me to take care of it. Remember? You said you trusted me. I wanted to say, no, I didn't. I wanted to scream. But all that came out was a whisper. Did I? She nodded, eyes soft and full of pity. You've been forgetting things lately. This way, you don't have to worry anymore. That's when it hit me. Not the words. Not the legal form. Not the transfer of control. But the tone. That gentling tone people use with children. Or pets. Not with adults. Not with mothers. Not with teachers who once held classrooms in the palm of their hand. I had been softened, wrapped in kindness, and erased. They didn't put me in a home. They didn't yell. They didn't tie my hands. They just made me small, then called it love. And suddenly, I understood. They weren't waiting for me to fade. They were helping me disappear. What would you do if your own name stopped belonging to you? My mornings used to begin with chalk dust. Not anymore. Now, it's just the soft click of the kettle and the distant sound of seagulls. The school shut down 5 years ago. They built a coffee shop over it, called it the Roost. Kids drink matcha now. I used to teach Shakespeare in that building. 40 years, 3 principals, 2 floods, and thousands of essays later. They forgot I existed. But I remember. My classroom had a squeaky floorboard, second row, third seat. When kids whispered, I'd pause, tap the floor, and wait. They'd quiet themselves. That was my power. Not loud, but certain. Now, my shoes make no sound on carpet. My words land softly, if at all. Angela says I should rest more. That my energy fades quickly these days. She's probably right. Still, I miss the feel of chalk between my fingers. The way dust lingered on my cardigan sleeves. Like proof that I had shaped something that day. There was something sacred in those moments. When a student's eyes lit up at a metaphor. When silence in the room meant they were listening. Really listening. Now, silence just means absence. My office was the last room in the house that still felt like mine. Books from the 70s. A globe with tape around Argentina. A tiny board with Miss Hayes's rules, in faded marker. Angela thought it needed clearing. She came with bins. Smiled, like it was a spring project. I'll keep what matters, she said. She kept the window blinds. Not the poetry journal my student gave me in 1984. When she left, I opened the trash bag. It smelled like plastic and lavender wipes. The board was there. The one with my rules. Respect the space. Speak with meaning. Try again tomorrow. I held it for a moment. Then placed it back into the bag. Not because it didn't matter. But because explaining why it did would have been too exhausting. There was no space left for explanation. Only for compliance. The kettle clicked off. Steam rose and curled like a question mark. I stared out the window. The neighbor's child was learning to ride a bike. Wobbling, falling, getting back up. No one clapped. No one told her she was too old to try. I turned away from the window slowly. In this house, silence wasn't peace. It was exile. If the room that once held your voice is emptied, where does your story go next? The hallway still smells like lemon polish. Angela uses those wipes with the artificial scent. Too clean. Too sudden. When I cleaned this house, I did it with a cloth soaked in vinegar and warm water. Slowly. Like tending to something living. Now, the surfaces shine. But they no longer reflect me. Even the family photos have been rearranged. Not removed. Just repositioned. My wedding photo used to sit in the middle shelf, between Angela's baby portrait and our family trip to Acadia. Now it leans behind a ceramic vase. Half hidden. Half remembered. I stood there one afternoon, dusting around it. Angela passed by and said, "That frame's a bit old-fashioned, Mom. Want me to get you a new one?" I said nothing. Because if I had answered, I might have told her that the frame was a wedding gift from her grandmother. That the back of it still had a handwritten note. To Ellie, who will always remember what matters. But she didn't ask for that story. Just the frame. So I nodded. And the next day, it was gone. I never asked where she put it. Some truths ache less when left alone. Evenings are the hardest. That's when the house feels most like a shell. The TV plays a cooking show no one really watches. Angela's husband scrolls through his phone. Angela checks pillboxes, click, sort, seal. No one asks what I'd like to do. I sit by the window, pretending to read. But mostly, I just watch the shadows stretch across the carpet. Sometimes I remember the time I broke my ankle in that very spot. Angela was 7. She made me a paper crown and said, "You're still the queen of this house." Now, she speaks to me like I'm a tenant. A gentle, harmless guest. She means well. They all do. But even love can bruise. When it forgets your edges. I've become the quiet furniture. The thing you walk around. Dust. Wipe. Forget. Not from cruelty. From convenience. And I wonder, when love becomes a duty instead of a dialogue, what does that make of us? The medicine drawer used to hold birthday candles. Now it holds schedules. Little compartments marked with days. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Tiny gates. Plastic. Color-coded. Angela sets them every Sunday evening. She doesn't ask if I still know what to take. She assumes I don't. Sometimes I pretend to forget, just to see how quickly she'll reach for the answer. Other times, I remember too well. But no one notices when you get something right. Only when you forget. That's the cruel arithmetic of aging. The absence of error is invisible. I once wrote entire lesson plans in one sitting. Without notes. Just memory and chalk. Now, they check if I've taken a vitamin. Angela said last week, "Mama, I think it's time we talk about a few things. You know, plans." She didn't mean dinner. She meant papers. Power of attorney. "Just in case," she said. I smiled politely. That's the training. When you're a woman, over 70, and no longer central, you learn to fold your opinions like napkins. Neat. Out of the way. She brought out a folder. Blue. With little tabs. Labeled. Finances. Medical. Emergency contact. I stared at it like it was a syllabus for a class I didn't choose. She said it was for my comfort. That word again. Comfort. As if dignity was something to trade for convenience. As if peace came from handing over the pen. I signed 2 things. I don't remember what. But I remember her nod. Like she'd done the right thing. I didn't stop her. That's what aches the most. Not what they did. But what I allowed. While calling it love. Later that night, I sat with a book in my lap. The pages blurred. I hadn't turned one in 20 minutes. There was a photo tucked between the chapters. Me. Angela. Her daughter. 3 generations. Smiling. But the caption on the back written in Angela's cursive. Grandma Ellie used to teach. Used to. That phrase stayed in my chest long after the light was off. When the people you love rewrite your story in past tense, how do you correct them? Gently? The invitation never came. Not in a text. Not in a call. Not even as an afterthought. Angela's voice, that morning, was breezy. Just a small thing for Lily. Nothing big. Don't worry about it, Mom. But it wasn't nothing. It was her daughter's 6th birthday. My granddaughter. My only one. I had baked her first cake. Vanilla sponge with pink frosting. Lily had licked the bowl clean and called me Magic Grandma. That title must have expired. From my window, I could see the balloons tied to the mailbox. Yellow and lavender. Her favorite colors. Cars lined the curb. Laughter spilled out like wind through the trees. I sat on the porch, wrapped in the shawl I wore every year on this day. It smelled faintly of frosting and powdered sugar. No one noticed. Not even Angela, who passed by with 2 gift bags and a tray of cupcakes. She waved. A quick flick of the wrist. Then turned back to the house. I wasn't sure which stung more. Her smile, or her comfort in smiling. I stayed seated. An hour passed. I counted the children's voices. 10. Maybe 12. Lily's giggle floated up like it used to. Someone said, "Blow out the candles." Then applause. Then silence. Then music. No one mentioned Grandma. My name wasn't needed. I stood slowly. Knees stiff from sitting too long. Or maybe from years of being still in all the wrong ways. Inside, I made myself tea. Chamomile, again. The cup trembled slightly in my hands. Not from weakness. From restraint. There was a time I would have gone in anyway. Held Lily. Told stories. But now, I had become optional. Like an extra chair. Not broken. Just no longer needed. The party continued without pause. I listened through the walls. A story about Lily's school. Someone mentioning a family trip next month. I wasn't included. Not even by accident. That's when I realized. They hadn't just forgotten me. They had edited me out. If your name disappears from their celebrations, does it still belong to the family tree? There used to be a chair by the window. Not just any chair. It was mine. Worn arms. Slight lean to the left. The seat cushion sagged in the middle. A perfect imprint of years spent rocking babies, sipping tea, reading aloud. That chair held stories. Now, it's gone. Replaced by a sleek gray glider. Modern. Silent. No creak. No memory. Angela said it matched the new rug. She never asked where I'd like it moved. She just moved it. I found it in the garage weeks later. Covered in an old sheet. Smelling faintly of lavender and dust. I ran my hand across the wood. The curve of the arms still fit my palm. A perfect fit, forgotten. In the hallway, the family photo wall had changed too. They added new frames, vacation pictures, school photos, smiling candids. But one was missing. The one from Lily's christening. I searched the box where Angela keeps the extras. Found it behind an envelope of coupons. The frame had cracked. She must have thought it not worth saving. But I remembered that day. How I had held Lily in a white blanket. How she had wrapped her tiny fingers around mine. Like she was anchoring me to this new generation. Now, even the pictures had let go. Later that evening, they had dinner without me. I wasn't hungry, Angela said. She assumed. I listened from my room. Lily asked, "Can Grandma sit with us?" Angela's voice came through light, careful. "She's resting, sweetheart. Let's not disturb her." Resting. The new word for uninvited. I sat on the edge of my bed. The bedspread still smelled like the old garden soap I used to make. It was the only thing in this house that still remembered me. No one knocked. No one asked. But Lily. She came in, barefoot and curious. She held something behind her back. It was a drawing. 3 stick figures. Mom, Dad, me. I waited. She turned the page. Drew another figure. You, Grandma, she said. Then added a sun in the corner. I forgot the sun, she whispered. I smiled. But inside, I broke a little. Even children know when something is missing. When even your memories are boxed and shelved. How do you stop them from fading into decoration? The next morning, Angela handed me a printed list. Meal plan for the week, she said. I looked at it. Monday, grilled chicken. Tuesday, pasta with mushrooms. Wednesday, Thai takeout. Thursday, salmon. No tea. No ginger biscuits. No jam toast. No, Eleanor. I scanned the list again. Then looked up. I thought we used to plan meals together, I said softly. Angela smiled, almost absent-mindedly. Well, it's easier this way. You don't need to worry about groceries or prep. I've got it. She meant well. She always did. That's what made it harder. Every small kindness became a quiet dismissal. Every helpful gesture, a vote of no confidence. I nodded, folded the paper in half, placed it on the table. My fingers lingered there. Years ago, that table held science fair posters, book reports, diagrams of volcanoes made from salt dough. I had stayed up all night helping Angela label one of them. Lava flows clockwise, I remember saying. Now, I couldn't even suggest dinner. I stood to put on water for tea. The kettle wasn't in its spot. Angela had moved it to a lower shelf. Easier for you to reach, she said, when I asked. But I had never struggled before. What I struggled with was how often she assumed I had. That afternoon, Lily came to the table with a drawing again. This one had a house. A big red door. 2 people inside. Angela and her husband. And where do I go? I asked. Lily hesitated, then pointed to a tree outside the house. Here. You're under the tree. I didn't say anything. She was just a child. But children draw what they see. Angela passed by moments later. She glanced at the paper, said nothing, only touched Lily's hair and said, pretty. That word again. Always safe. Always shallow. Like the life they now imagined for me. Polite. Quiet. Decorative. I took the paper. Folded it gently. Lily didn't protest. She'd already moved on to the next thing. Everyone always does. If they stop placing you at the table, do you still set a place for yourself? The envelope wasn't addressed to me. It was tucked into Monday's mail. A plain white windowed letter slid between a magazine and a coupon flyer. Angela had opened everything else. That one, she left on the counter. I don't know if it was on purpose. But I saw the logo. First Harbor Credit Union. My name wasn't on the front. But I knew it had once been on the account. I waited until the house was quiet. Afternoon sun poured in through the blinds. The kitchen smelled faintly of lemon and reheated pasta. I picked it up. My hands didn't shake. The paper was thin, cheap. The kind that creases too easily. The kind banks use when something final has already happened. The top line read, confirmation of beneficiary, account authority transfer. Then, account ending in 9047 has been formally reassigned under power of attorney to Ms. Angela Wilcox. There was a date. 2 months ago. Below that, my name. Signature in blue ink. It looked like mine. It was mine. But I had no memory of signing it. I sat down, slowly. The chair groaned beneath me. The only thing in the room honest enough to speak. I read it again. And again. Each word like a stone dropped into a well. No splash. Just sinking. I looked at the bottom corner small print. If you have questions, please contact your assigned representative. It wasn't even me. Angela had listed herself as my contact. I didn't feel rage. Not yet. Just subtraction. like something essential had been taken, but too neatly to leave a mess. That night, I asked her about it. Her eyes flickered, then softened. "Oh, Mom," she said, placing a hand on mine. "You told me to take care of that, remember? You said it was all too much." Too much. That phrase again. As if my life had become an overfilled bag. Too heavy to hold. Too much to carry. Too much to trust me with. I stared at her. Searched her face for guilt. Found none. Only efficiency. And pride. She believed she had done something good. For me. With me. To me. I excused myself. Closed the door to my room. Sat in the dark. Not because I needed silence, but because silence was the only thing they hadn't signed away yet. If they can take what's yours using your own hand, how do you prove it was stolen? The next morning, I asked for tea. Not because I needed it, but because I wanted to see if she would pause. Angela didn't. She dropped a tea bag into the mug, added too much honey, and slid it toward me. "Still feeling tired?" she asked. I looked at the cup. Then at her. "No," I said. "I'm actually feeling very clear today." She smiled like that was a nice surprise. I took the letter from my cardigan pocket. Unfolded it slowly. Placed it on the table between us. Her face didn't change. Only her hands stilled. Hovering above a stack of napkins. "You weren't supposed to see that yet," she said softly. That word again. Yet. Like my access to truth needed timing. Permission. I didn't speak. Didn't need to. Angela picked up the letter, scanned it, then sighed. "I was going to explain everything. It's all legal, Mom. You signed the POA. You said." "I don't remember saying yes," I cut in. Her eyes met mine. "Cool. Steady. You've been forgetful lately. You even called Lily by the wrong name last week." I blinked. It had happened once. I had said, Emily, her doll's name. That was her proof. "I'm not declining," I said. Angela's mouth tightened. "No one's saying you're incompetent, Mom. Just forgetful. Just cautious. It's for your peace of mind." I leaned back in the chair. Felt the wood press against my spine like a verdict. "Whose peace?" I asked. She didn't answer right away. Instead, she began rearranging things: salt shaker, sugar bowl, napkin stack. Like control was something she could build back from porcelain. "I'm just trying to help," she whispered. I nodded. Because if I didn't, I might scream. And once a woman over 70 raises her voice, they call it confusion. They call it decline. Not grief. Not fury. Not betrayal. She left the room. The letter remained. I picked it up. Traced the curve of my own name. It looked like me. But I no longer recognized it. That night, I couldn't sleep. Not from fear, but from the realization that I had trained her too well. How to be calm. How to be composed. How to sound right. Even when she was wrong. When they use your own lessons against you. What do you become in the story they tell? I couldn't eat dinner that night. Angela made stew. The kind I used to simmer all Sunday. But it tasted flat. Like something borrowed and returned without the soul. She asked if I wanted crackers. I said no. She didn't press. That hurt more. In my room, I opened the small cedar box. The one my husband gave me on our 25th anniversary. "Put only truth inside," he had said, half joking. Inside were letters. His handwriting sharp, deliberate. One folded slip had yellowed. I opened it with slow hands. It read, "If the world forgets who you are, remind them quietly and thoroughly." He wrote that after I retired. When I worried I'd become invisible. I read it twice. Then tucked it into my cardigan pocket. Not for comfort, but for clarity. The next morning, I asked Angela for my medical file. She paused. "Why?" "I want to read it." She hesitated. Then smiled. "Of course. Just give me a bit to pull it all together." She meant to sort through it first. To redact, to explain, to shape the narrative before it reached my hands. I thanked her. Then walked to the kitchen. Angela had gone to the garden with Lily. The house was quiet. Too quiet. I opened the drawer where she kept the files. Labeled and alphabetized. There, behind utilities and vacuum warranty, was a thin folder marked, Mom Poedocs. I didn't take it. I only opened it. Inside, my signature. Copies of the bank form. Notes from her. A checklist. At the bottom, a sticky note in her handwriting. Present as her advocate, not her warden. I stared at that line. So she knew. She knew the difference. And still she chose this. That hurt more than the legalese. More than the memory loss accusation. More than the silence. She knew. I closed the folder. Left everything as it was. Except the sticky note. That I took. I folded it. Placed it next to my husband's letter. Not to save it. To remember it. To build from it. They had erased my name from the ledger. But not from the page. When they take your pen and sign for you, can you still write yourself back in? The suitcase didn't make a sound. Wheels over carpet. Then tile. Then gravel. I didn't slam a door. Didn't leave a note. Didn't even cry. I just exited. Angela was at the market with Lily. I knew I had 2 hours. Maybe less. But you don't need much time. When you're only packing what still belongs to you. 3 cardigans. 1 worn paperback. My glasses. And a letter from the man who once made me feel unforgettable. That's all I took. Everything else. The plates I chose for our wedding registry. The quilt I stitched through winter colds. The clock that used to chime on our anniversary. They no longer knew my name. So I left them. The sun was low in the sky. That hour when light turns gold. But nothing feels warm. I didn't call a cab. Didn't want a witness. I walked 3 blocks to Margaret's house. My oldest friend. She opened the door in her gardening gloves. Paused. Then said, "You finally leaving?" I nodded. She didn't ask why. Didn't need to. Sometimes, when you've shared 50 years of friendship, words become unnecessary. She led me to the guest room. The one with a lopsided painting and a bed that creaked. I sat on the edge. The mattress didn't sag to my shape. Not yet. The room smelled like mothballs and peppermint cream. Foreign. But honest. I looked around. Everything unfamiliar. Everything temporary. Still, it was the first space in months. That didn't speak to me like I was broken. I opened the suitcase. Unfolded the cardigan. Placed the book on the nightstand. Then I lay back. The ceiling had water stains in the corner. One looked like a leaf. Or maybe a flame. I watched it until my eyes blurred. And then, I let go. Not of my name. Not of my fight. Just of the version of me who waited for permission to matter. When you leave the place built from your memories, what do you carry with you that still feels like home? The silence was thick. Not angry. Not sharp. Just full. It settled into the room like dust. It clung to my sleeves. To the folds of the blanket Margaret had left at the foot of the bed. I lay still. Listening for something familiar. There was nothing. No hallway creaks. No teacup clinks. No soft patter of Lily's feet in the morning. Only my own breath. And the hum of a world that had moved on. Without needing to ask if I was coming. I reached for my glasses. Not to read. Just to feel useful. They were smudged. I wiped them with the edge of my cardigan. The same way I used to wipe Lily's hands. After ice cream. Funny how muscle memory persists. Long after the moments it belongs to are gone. I looked out the window. Margaret's yard was small. A few stubborn rose bushes. One broken garden gnome with a missing eye. Nothing remarkable. But in that moment, It felt more honest than anything I had called home for the past 5 years. At least the gnome didn't smile when it erased you. I closed my eyes and let the questions in. Had I meant anything? Beyond lists and lunches. Beyond ironing shirts. Beyond organizing bake sales and parent-teacher nights. Had I ever been more than a body that moved things forward? For everyone else? Who had seen me? Really seen me? Not as a mother. Not as a teacher. Not as a helpful, steady, polite old woman. But as Eleanor. As the girl who once dreamed of writing novels. As the woman who danced barefoot on her back porch. After getting tenure. As the person I had quietly edited out. To make room for everyone else. That night, I didn't sleep. I just existed. Like a comma in a sentence. No one planned to finish. And for the first time, I wondered, if I disappeared entirely, would anyone know what had been lost? Margaret found me in the kitchen. I was pouring hot water over a single chamomile bag. No honey. No cup warmer. Just warmth. She leaned on the doorframe. Her gardening gloves still on. You going to stay forever? She asked. I smiled without lifting my head. Just until I remember who I am. She didn't laugh. Didn't correct me. Just nodded. Then she sat down. And said nothing more. That was Margaret. No fixing. No fussing. Just space. After breakfast, I wandered into her sunroom. Dusty books. Old blankets. One rocking chair with a loose spindle. I sat. It groaned, but held. And for the first time in weeks, something held me without question. I reached for the book on the end table. Didn't recognize the title. Didn't need to. The pages smelled like basement and patience. The kind of scent only books and women past 70 carry with dignity. Inside the front cover, a note in Margaret's handwriting. Borrow anything. Touch everything. Just don't lose yourself in the silence. I closed the book. And whispered. I already have. The chair kept rocking. A rhythm I didn't need to control. I thought of my students. All those years. All those names. One came to mind. George Lyle. Always late. Always scribbling. But always listening. He once wrote me a letter. Senior year. Said. You taught me that being quiet doesn't mean being invisible. That the right words, at the right time, can change everything. I had kept that letter. Somewhere. Maybe it was still in my old desk drawer. Maybe Angela had thrown it out. But I remembered it. Word for word. And suddenly, I felt something. Not anger. Not even grief. Just an ember. Tiny. But real. If silence can erase you, can memory write you back in? I asked Margaret if I could sort through her attic. She raised an eyebrow. Looking for something? No, I said. Just needing to remember what real dust feels like. She handed me a flashlight. The attic smelled like time. Old sweaters. Candle wax. Wood that had survived winters without complaint. I moved slowly. Cardboard boxes like coffins. For lives we once lived. Labels in faded ink. Christmas 1983, Steve's tools. Photos may be trash. I found a small wooden chest in the far corner. Unmarked. Unclaimed. Inside ribbons, cards, a tiny ceramic bird with a chipped wing. And a notebook. Blue cover. Spiral binding. I opened it. My handwriting. My old address. My name. Written cleanly across the top right corner. It was a logbook. Notes I had made about bills, birthdays, home repairs. One page caught my eye. July 2004, paid full deed transfer fee for storefront. Retained sole ownership, Eleanor Hayes. Gift from Walter, keep separate. I stared. The storefront. That little space on Hillcrest Avenue. A former bakery. Walter had bought it for me after I retired. He said, If you ever want to turn poems into pastries, this is your spot. I never did. But I never sold it either. Angela never asked. It had just sat there, forgotten, but not erased. I held the notebook tight. My hands started to shake. Not from weakness, but from the sudden recognition that I still existed. Somewhere on paper. As whole. Not shared. Not signed away. Not managed. Mine. The flashlight flickered. The attic dimmed. But something inside me brightened. For the first time in months, I felt the weight of something that wasn't shame. It was possibility. Not a plan. Not yet. Just the shape of one. I climbed down the ladder slowly, one hand still gripping the notebook. Margaret was in the kitchen. She looked up. You find anything worth keeping? I nodded. Then said, yes, me. If one piece of paper still holds your name, is that enough to begin again? Margaret made tea. Mint, this time. She poured us each a cup. We sat on the back steps, watching wind stir the rosemary bushes. I called Angela, she said. I looked over. She asked if you were all right. I didn't answer. She also said, Margaret continued, that you should come home soon. That Lily misses you. That things have calmed down. Calmed down. As if I had been the storm. I sipped the tea. The cup was chipped. The mint too strong. But at least it was honest. What did you say to her? I asked. Margaret paused. I said you'd come back, if and when you wanted. And that you weren't lost. Just quiet. Quiet. Such a strange word now. It used to be my strength. Now it had become their excuse. I stood. Went back inside. Took out the notebook again. The page with the deed note felt heavier than the rest. Like it had waited years to matter. I didn't know what I'd do with it. Not yet. But I knew I wouldn't hand it to Angela. Wouldn't fold it into one more envelope marked Simplify. That night, I asked Margaret a question. I hadn't spoken aloud in years. Do you remember George Lyle? She blinked. The boy who wore his sweater inside out? Always in the library? I smiled. Yes, that one. He's a lawyer now, isn't he? I nodded. I think I want to call him. Margaret didn't flinch. Didn't ask why. She only said, would you like the phone book or the internet? That made me laugh. The first real laugh in weeks. I chose the phone book. The pages crinkled. I found his name, George Lyle, attorney at law. Downtown. Still in the same zip code. Still reachable. So was I. I didn't call him that night. But I wrote his number down. Folded the paper. Placed it in the blue notebook. Not for safekeeping. For strategy. If you've been silent long enough. Isn't it time they remembered your voice? I dialed the number just after sunrise. The light hadn't warmed the windows yet. But my decision had. The line rang twice. George Lyle's office. A voice answered. Polite. Alert. Too young to remember me. I cleared my throat. This is Eleanor Hayes. Tell him his 10th grade English teacher would like a word. There was a pause. Then, a quiet, stunned laugh. He'll call you back right away, she said. He did. 5 minutes later. Miss Hayes? His voice cracked slightly. Like memory had startled him mid-sentence. It's Mrs. now, I replied. But I still answer to Miss. When the grammar's good. He chuckled. And just like that, I felt seen again. We set a meeting. No fanfare. No backstory. Just a time. A date. And the gentle weight of something real beginning. I hung up. Sat at Margaret's table. Let the silence hold me like it used to. Later that day, I found my old teaching file. I had saved it in a plastic bin behind Margaret's washer. Inside. Letters from students. Certificates. A faded article about my retirement. And one card from George. In it, he wrote, "Thanks for teaching me how to structure an argument. Turns out that skill pays the bills." I packed it with me, along with the deed note. And the sticky note Angela once wrote. Present as her advocate, not her warden. That one, I would not forget. When I arrived at George's office, he stood up. Tall. Older now. But the same eyes. We didn't hug. But something in the room shifted. Recognition, perhaps. He gestured to the chair across from him. I sat. He folded his hands. "What do you need from me, Miss Hayes?" I looked at him. Held his gaze. And for the first time, in a long time, I spoke without shrinking. "I need to be written back into my life. When the law becomes your whisper, can they still pretend not to hear you?" George took notes slowly. He didn't interrupt. Didn't correct me. Didn't glance at the clock once. I told him everything. About the forms. The forgotten consent. The missing chair. The erased photos. The sticky note. At one point, he looked up and asked gently, "Do you want to reverse the power of attorney?" I paused. Then shook my head. "I want to make it irrelevant." He raised an eyebrow. Interested. "I still have legal control over one property," I said. "The Hillcrest storefront." George smiled. "That's something." "It's everything," I replied. We sat in silence for a moment. Not awkward, strategic. Then he leaned forward. "What do you want to do with it?" I breathed in. That old storefront had once been a joke. Now it could be a message. "I want to turn it into a foundation," I said. "For women who've been made small. Silently, legally, lovingly." He nodded. "Second Act Foundation," he murmured. I smiled. "Yes. Exactly that." We began drawing papers. I signed them with steady hands. No one stood over me. No one explained it slowly. No one used the word, just in case. Each signature felt like a reclamation. Each document, a page rewritten. George explained the structure. 501(3) Nonprofit. Asset protection. Independent governance. Angela wouldn't be able to touch it. No clause. No loophole. No quiet override. It would stand. Not as revenge, but as reminder. I pulled the deed note from my bag. Laid it flat on his desk. "This is where it begins," I said. He scanned it. Stamped it. Then looked at me. "I have to say, Miss Hayes, you've built a powerful case." I met his eyes. "This isn't a case, George. It's a chapter." He smiled. And in that moment, I realized I wasn't rebuilding a past. I was planting something. For someone I'd never meet. If they rewrite your ending without consent, can you choose to begin again instead? I didn't tell Angela right away. Some messages speak louder when they arrive in silence. George filed the paperwork. Transferred ownership. Registered the foundation. By Friday, it was official. Second Act Foundation. Founder, Eleanor Hayes. Purpose, protection, dignity, education, after 60. I asked George to mail one copy to the house. No explanation. Just the legal packet. Unfolded, stamped, complete. 3 days later, I got the call. Angela's voice was tight. Too controlled. "Mom, I got something from a law office. Is this real?" "Yes," I said. Silence. Then, "You didn't tell me." "You didn't ask," I replied. She tried to laugh. It didn't land. "What is this, Mom?" "Some sort of statement." I didn't answer that. Some statements don't need to be said. They're made in ink. And permanence. She softened. I thought we were taking care of things together." "You took over," I said. "I'm just rebalancing the scales." Another pause. "Do you really think I meant to hurt you?" "No," I said. "And that's what made it so easy to let you." The line went quiet. Then she whispered, "What happens now?" And I replied, "Now, I become a name on a building again." We hung up. No yelling. No tears. Just understanding. Uneven. But beginning. That night, I sat by Margaret's window. The wind outside moved the curtains like a slow breath. I held the foundation papers in my lap. The ink had barely dried. But I felt it. The pulse of something real. Not a victory. Not a punishment. Just the quiet satisfaction of existing on my own terms. I looked out into the dark. Somewhere, someone else was sitting by a window, holding her breath, thinking she was done. Faded. Filed away. She wasn't. Not yet. If you leave no trace behind, how will the next woman know she's not alone? The room was too bright. Angela always liked overhead lights. Said lamps made things feel messy. This wasn't her kitchen anymore. But she still ran it like a boardroom. I sat across from her. Lily sat nearby, legs swinging under the table. Not really listening, but watching everything. Angela folded her arms. "So," she said, "are we going to talk about this foundation?" I didn't flinch. "Yes." Her husband cleared his throat. Tried to make his voice casual. "It just caught us off guard, that's all." "A non-profit? In your name?" "In my name," I said. "Yes." Angela blinked. That small, quick blink people do when they're recalculating. I reached into my bag. Pulled out the file folder George had given me. Laid it on the table. "Everything's there," I said. "Deed transfer. Charter. Independent oversight. You're welcome to read it." She didn't touch it. Instead, she looked at me like I had slipped out of the role. She'd spent years writing for me. "Mom, you could have talked to me." "I tried," I said. "You interpreted." The air shifted. Lily's crayon rolled off the table. She bent to pick it up. The only sound in the room. Angela's husband finally spoke. "So what exactly is this for?" I met his eyes. "It's for women who were told they were lucky just to be remembered." He leaned back. Said nothing more. Angela opened the folder. Her eyes scanned the first page. Then, the second. Her jaw tightened. "George helped you with this?" "Yes." She nodded slowly. Then looked up. "And what do you want from us?" I smiled. Softly. Steadily. "Nothing." And that was the shift. The one they hadn't prepared for. When you walk in with nothing to ask. Only something to declare. What power can they take from you then? I reached into the folder again. Not for the legal documents. For the letter. Walter's handwriting. On yellowing paper. Folded once. Carefully. Angela watched me. But said nothing. I unfolded it. Held it in both hands. And began to read. "To my Ellie," I said aloud. "If the world forgets who you are, remind them quietly. And thoroughly." The room stilled. Lily looked up. Her crayon frozen in midair. I kept reading. "You've taught whole generations how to speak clearly. And listen gently. Don't let anyone take your quiet away. That's where your power lives." I lowered the page. Looked at Angela. "That letter was written the year we retired," I said. "When he gave me the deed." She nodded slowly. But her eyes. They were glass. No tears. Just the beginning of recognition. I slid the letter toward her. "You don't need to agree with what I've done," I said. "But you do need to understand that I've never stopped being capable." Her husband shifted in his seat. Crossed his arms. Angela reached out. Touched the corner of the paper. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" I smiled. "I did. You just heard what made you comfortable." Another silence. This one. Heavier. Lily whispered. "Grandma?" I turned to her. She pointed to the letter. "Is that from Grandpa Walter?" I nodded. "He wrote good things," she said. I swallowed. Yes, sweetheart. He did. Angela's hand stayed on the paper. Not gripping. Not hiding it. Just touching something she hadn't made. And couldn't undo. The silence returned. But this time, I owned it. When the only voice left is the one they tried to bury with time. And it still speaks clearly. What argument remains? Angela sat very still. One hand on Walter's letter. The other resting on the table's edge. Like she needed something to anchor her. Before the truth tipped her over. I didn't rush. Silence. Here. Was no longer a weakness. It was a verdict. Her husband broke first. Well, I guess we all misunderstood a few things. I turned to him. No, I said. You understood exactly what made you comfortable. You just didn't expect I'd find language for it. Angela finally spoke. I never wanted to hurt you. I know. But I thought. She stopped. Swallowed. I thought I was protecting you. I nodded slowly. That's the hardest lie to forgive. She lowered her eyes. Across the table, Lily reached for my hand. Small fingers. Warm palm. She didn't say anything. Just held on. Then, softly, Grandma, are you leaving again? I shook my head. Not this time. And I meant it. I looked at Angela. Let her meet my eyes. Then said it. The sentence that had waited months. To be spoken aloud. My dignity was never part of your inheritance. She closed her eyes. Not from shame. From understanding. There were no arguments. No negotiations. No tantrums. Just the quiet click of awareness locking into place. I stood. Gathered the folder. The letter. The memory. And turned to Lily. I'll be by tomorrow. We can finish our storybook. She smiled. Angela didn't stop me. Didn't plead. Didn't explain. Because now. She knew. I wasn't asking permission anymore. When silence becomes the loudest sound in the room. What more needs to be said? Some women sent small donations. $10. $5. Sometimes just a card with pressed flowers and a sentence written in shaky pen. This story sounds like mine. Others stopped by in person. They didn't knock loudly. They entered quietly. Stood near the wall. Browsed the bookshelf. Touched the plaque like it might answer something no one had ever asked out loud. One woman, Esther, 73, from Bar Harbor, walked in holding a tin of ginger cookies. She said, I never raised my voice in 60 years. But I'm here now. We sat for an hour. Didn't talk much. She left me the tin. And a note tucked inside. I don't want to be remembered as nice. I want to be remembered as whole. I pinned that one to the corkboard by the entryway. Each note was different. But they all asked the same thing. Was it just me? And I answered. In tea. In silence. In presence. No. It wasn't. Each week, I wrote something small for the local paper. A column called, After the Quiet. Not advice. Not instruction. Just reflections. Little stories about growing older. Without disappearing. One reader sent in a response. My daughter says I'm too sensitive. I told her sensitivity saved me. Another wrote. I never knew there was a name for what I felt. Thank you for naming it with kindness. The column gained traction. Not viral. Not loud. Just steady. Like water through stone. Some stories don't need to shout. They just need to stay. When a life begins to echo in others. Isn't that the softest kind of immortality? That afternoon, I walked to the bakery on Hillcrest Avenue. The one Walter gave me. The one I never opened. The one that waited. Until I was ready. The lock clicked softly. The bell above the door chimed just once. No customers. No shelves. Just space. Old brick. Scuffed floors. The scent of forgotten paint. I stood in the middle of it all and listened. Not for sound, for possibility. I ran my hand along the wall. Rough, cold, honest. Then I reached into my coat pocket, pulled out a slip of paper. One sentence, written in blue ink. I belong here. I pinned it to the empty bulletin board by the door. The first page of many. By spring, the windows would be filled with light. The shelves lined with stories. A kettle always warm. And a chair by the back window, rocking slightly, waiting for the next woman to sit down and speak. I walked home slowly. Stopped once to help a woman with her bags. She was younger than me, but already tired in the eyes. She said, "My mother's slipping away. She doesn't talk like she used to." I touched her arm. Gently. "Maybe," I said. "She's just not being heard." The woman stared at me, then nodded. That night, I opened the window. The air was cool. The sky, a kind of blue that only exists when no one's looking. I sat in my chair. The old one. The one that remembers. Walter's letter above me. The corkboard beside me. And a soft stack of unopened envelopes. New voices arriving. I thought about the girl I was. About the woman they tried to reduce. About the mother I tried to keep being, even when the story no longer fit. And I felt something I hadn't in years. Stillness. Not silence. Stillness. The kind that holds, not hides. I looked out at the street lamps flickering on, and whispered, "I am not gone. I was never gone." What does dignity mean to you? When no one is watching? Have you ever had to reclaim a part of yourself they told you was already spoken for? Tell me. Tell us. Your voice belongs here too. We invite you to share your story in the comments below. You are not alone. And your story is not finished. And subscribe to Kamar FM, where every story is a second chance.